C. The Greek Code of Draco. And Grace, the Code of Draco, a harsh code that provides the same punishment for both citizens and the slaves as it incorporates primitive concept, vengeance, blood feud. So, ito naman kung ano yung sa citizen at saka yung mga slaves. Dati kasi, kapag gumagawa yung slaves natin, yung mga maid, halimbawa, yung tigilan sa mga talasugway, so magkaiba yung infliction of punishment. But during sis Draco is lumabas na dapat pantay-pantay ang mamamayan. The Greeks were the first society to allow any citizen to prosecute the offender in the name of the injured party. So, doon na lumabas na yung citizen, halimbawa, is sila yung magbibigay ng verdict kung ano yung dapat gawin ng injured party. Ang injured party yung victims. So, the Burgundian Code, 500 AD, specified punishment according to the social class of offenders, dividing into the nobles, middle class, and lower class, and specifying the value of the life of each person according to social status. So, dito sa Burgundian Code, mayroon tayong specification ng punishment doon sa mga nobles, doon sa mga middle, lower. So, yun. Napaka-unfair ng batas. Early codes, Philippine setting. Doon naman tayo sa Pilipinas bago natin alamin yung bago natin palawakin pa yung ating discussion. So the early codes, Philippine setting. The Philippines is one of the many countries that came under the influence of the Roman law because we have the legal system which is synonymous to the criminal law by the Roman law. History has shown that the Roman Empire reached its greatest extent to most of continental Europe such as Spain, Portugal, France, and all of Central Europe. Makikita nyo yung evolution ng Roman law. Eventually, the Spanish Civil Code became effective in the Philippines on December 7, 1889, wherein almost more than 300 years tayo na colonized ng Spaniards. The Conquistadores and the Código Penal, the revised penal code today, 1930, was introduced by the Spaniards promulgated by the King of Spain. Basically, these laws adopted the Roman law principles. So yan yung evolution ng ating batas. Most tribal traditions, customs, and practices influenced laws during the pre-Spanish Philippines. There were also laws that were written which include, so before natin yan, sa Pilipinas, sa ating mga Maranao, meron tayong Taritib Anigma or Taritib Anijma. Tapos, nagbabase rin tayo sa Hadith, sa Quran, yung sa Sharia law natin. So, yan yung evolution ng ating batas sa atin. The Code of Kalansiaw promulgated in 1433, the most extensive and severe law that prescribes harsh punishment. The Maragtas Code by Dato Sumakwel, Sikatuna Law. So, yan yung tatlong written laws by our ancestors. So, we also have early prisons. Mamertine Prison, the only early Roman place of confinement, which is built under the main sewer of Rome, 64 BC. Other places of confinement in the history of confinement include fortresses, castles, and town gates. So, maritime prison, always remember na include sa mga confinement is meron tayong fort, castles, town gates. Okay, the most popular workhouse was the Bridewell Workhouse, 1557 in London, which was built for the employment and housing of English prisoners. Walnut Street Jail, originally constructed as detention jail in Philadelphia. Remember this one also. It was converted into a state prison and became the first American penitentiary. Okay, narinig nyo? While early prison in the Philippines, we have, during the pre-Spanish period, prison system in the Philippines was tribal in nature. So tribal, habang sinabi natin tribal, kung ano yung ginawa mo sa tribe mo, doon ka lang ikukulong, doon ka lang, halimbawa, doon lang magbibigay ng punishment sa'yo. Village chieftains and administered it. It was historically traced from the early written laws. In 1847, the first believed prison was constructed and became the central place of confinement for Filipino prisons by virtue of the royal decree of the Spanish crown. So yan, dapat alam natin yan. In 1936, the City of Manila exchanges its Muntinlupa property with the Bureau of Prisons, originally intended as a site for boys training school. Today, the old Bilibid prison is now being used as the Manila City Jail, famous as the May Haligi Estate. Oh, remember. So, pag sinabi natin, the old Bilibid prison is also known is known for its famous name as May Haligi Estate. Always remember. Okay, the emergence of secular law. The emergence of secular law on the 4th AD, secular laws were advocated by Christian philosophers who recognizes the need for justice. Some of the proponents these laws were Saint Augustine and Saint Thomas Aquinas. Makikita nito sa philosophy si Saint Augustine at sa Saint Thomas Aquinas. Three laws were distinguished. Mayroon tayong external law, lex externa; natural law, lex naturalis; human law, lex humana. Remember this one, nasa law book 1, law book 2, and so on and so forth, may mga term na ganito. So, all these laws are intended for the common good, but the human law only becomes valid if it does not conflict with the other two laws. So, external laws, natural law, human laws. Okay, punishment. So punishment, we have, it is the redress that the state takes against an offending member of society that usually involves pain and suffering. It is also the penalty imposed on an offender for a crime of wrongdoing. So ang punishment natin takes against an offending member of society. So sa Pilipinas mayroon tayong batas. So the court, the legal system of the Philippines will determine the probable cause and punishment to be given to a certain criminal offender. Ancient form of punishment. Mayroon tayong death penalty, physical torture, social degradation, banishment or exile. Sa death penalty, mayroon tayong burning, beheading, hanging, breaking at the wheels, pillory, and forms of medieval execution. Harsh masyado yung pagpatay sa tao. Physical torture, maiming, mutilation, whipping, and other inhuman or barbaric forms of inflicting pain. Makikita natin sa maiming, mutilation, yung torture sa leeg, halimbawa, puputulan ka ng certain body parts, and so on and so forth. Social degradation, putting offender into shame or humiliation. Makikita natin yung pinapalakad ka na mayroong nakasulat sa likod mo, o kaya pinaghubad ka sa labas. Okay. Banishment or exile, yung kapag nakakommit ka ng krimen, so you will be sending or putting away sa lugar kung saan ka gumawa ng krimen. O kaya ilalagay ka doon sa pinakamalayo. Mayroon tayo sa batas nito yung banishment or exile. For in case, as I have said, halimbawa, yung na-justify mo na yung dalawa, yung asawa mo at saka yung kanyang kabit, halimbawa napatay mo sila on the spot na ginagawa nilang isang concubinage or adultery, so you will be subject for exile or banishment within 25 radius. Other similar forms of punishment like transportation and slavery. Okay. We also have early forms of prison disciplines. Number 1 is early forms. We have hard labor, deprivation, monotony, uniformity, mass movement, degradation, corporal punishment, isolation, or solitary confinement. Sa hard labor, meron kang productive works. Dito sa atin is meron tayong community immersion or community works. Okay. Deprivation of any division. Okay. Lahat-lahat hindi sa ibibigay. Kapakainin, for example. Monotony, giving the same food that is off diet o maliit yung pagkain mo. Uniformity, magkakatulad. Mass movement, uh, mga kulungan, doon lang kayo pwedeng pumasok, lumabas. Degradation, pinagkasabihan ka ng masasamang word. Corporal punishment, yan yung brutal punishment or employing physical force. Okay, ayan a solution of solitary confinement. Kung ikaw lang talaga mag-isa sa isang lugar, doon ka lang nilagay. So, yun yung solitary confinement. Contemporary forms of punishment, we have imprisonment, parole, provision, fine, distero. So, imprisonment, putting the offender in prison for the purpose of protecting the public. Okay. So, yun yung purpose ng imprisonment. Sa parole, a conditional release of prisoners after serving part of his/her sentence in prison for the purpose of gradually reintroducing him/her to free life under the guidance and supervision of a parole officer. Bakit meron tayong term na after serving part? Kapag nakita niyo yan sa board exam, parole na agad yan. Halimbawa, 20 years life sentence. 20 years sentence. So, after serving part, naka 10 years ka, so you are eligible for parole as long as maganda yung conduct mo. Nandiyan na papasok si good GCTA, good conduct and time allowance. Okay. Provision. A disposition whereby a defendant after conviction of an offense, the penalty of which does not exceed 6 years imprisonment. Sa, ano yan? Sa provincial jail, po pwede. Is released subject to the condition imposed by the releasing court and under the supervision of a provisioner officer. Okay. Itong parole provision, napakalawak ng saklaw nito. Matatakal natin sa non-institutional correction. But before this one, we are going to discuss to know details. Alam ko naman na take na nyo na to, pero I want you to remember and take a glance on it para hindi na tayo mahirapan. Fine. Okay, sa ating batas, we have civil damages at saka criminal liability. So, both. Halimbawa, pinatawan ka ng korte ng pagkakulong ng 6 years, tapos mayroon ka pang civil liability, halimbawa, magbabayad ka ng 100,000, so kailangan mo yun bayaran. Distero, yung vanishing 25 kilometers perimeter, yung example ko kanina, yan yung halimbawa sa exile banishment, yung distero. Justifications of punishment. So, retribution, the punishment should be provided by the state whose sanction is violated. So, yun yung sinasabi nating retribution. O, kinakailangan may bibigay mo na punishment so long as yung state policies is naging na-violate. Expiation or atonement. It is punishment in the form of group vengeance where the purpose is to appease the offended public or group. So, halimbawa, atonement. It is punishment in the form of group vengeance where the purpose is to appease the offended public or group. So, yan yung mga punishment na binibigay. Expiation atonement, for example, yung grupong manglalakbay, grupong mandarambong. So, yun expiation or atonement. Deterrence. Punishment gives lesson. Listen to the offender by showing to other what would happen to them if they violate the law. So, ang example nito, halimbawa, yung tao is nakagawa ng krimen. So, kapag nabigyan siya ng verdict, so madideter yung ibang tao na kapag gumawa pala ako ng ganyan, mayroong kakibat na kaso. Incapacitation and protection. The public will be protected if the offender has been held in conviction. Okay, dyan na yung justification ng ng punishment natin. Sa expiation atonement, so kapag gumawa yung isang grupo ng is huliin sila lahat. Reformation or rehabilitation, ito yung pinaka maganda sa lahat. Is establishment of the useful and responsibility of the offender. So, that could be all for today. So, maraming salamat.